What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of Strom Sessions. We are here with one of the best defensive backs in the country, one of the newest Canes, Meesh Powell. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Doing great, man. So you're almost through your first Miami summer.
Yes.
It's October, but still a summer. So how you feeling? How was it all?
It's been great. You know, the transition here, just getting here and, you know, getting acclimated with the weather, the people, you know, it's been great. Great transition, definitely.
Talk to me about growing up out there. You know, what was it like just being a kid in that kind of environment?
Right. So, you know, grow up in Seattle, we'll say, you know, first thing, you know, the weather is definitely a lot different. I would say there it's a little more laid back, a little more chill. You know, we do, you know, similar things. You know, kids do everything, you know, like kids do everything across the world. So that was the biggest thing. But really just growing up, you know, hanging out with my mom, my dad, my sister, you know, those are the main people in the forefront of my life. And really just, you know, growing up, and I had a, you know, great family support system, you know, to kind of raise me up into the person I am. But yeah, you know, you just grow up as a normal kid, really.
Let's talk about that here. So I had the privilege of talking with Daryl, Yvonne. They told me about Uriah, your sister. So, I mean, both parents, HBCU, then Ivy League grad school. Your sister gets her master's at Houston.
Right.
Obviously, expectations academically, forget athletics, are huge. What was that like?
I would say, you know, that, like you said, you know, expectations for academics was big. You know, when it came to academics, you know, a B was already like a no-go for me. You know, once my parents saw, you know, the type of grades I could get, you know, which were A's, they were like, okay, well, that's the standard we're going to hold you to, like, regardless. I remember one time, you know, I committed to a school. So I started like kind of slacking a bit, like in my classes, and they got on me hard for that. And I was like, I'm already committed. They're like, it doesn't matter. Like, make sure. So yeah, no, academics has always been, you know, the forefront. Sports like started to come into the picture, but even still now, it's still academics for sure.
So just competitive wise, you know, again, talking to your parents, they said that when they go to your parent teacher conferences, they'd say, hey, Mishael, you know, great kid. He's doing everything right, but he's always got to be first in line.
Right.
And they were telling me you guys were feeding the homeless and doing things like that.
Oh yeah, most
and
definitely.
There's a competition about who's going to make the most sandwiches.
Yeah.
No. Basically, once the Powell showed up, it became a competition.
Most definitely.
Was that something that was ingrained in you?
Most definitely. I'll say my mom, my dad, and my sister, they're all really competitive. We're competitive on like small things. Like we're cleaning the kitchen, like who could clean it faster. We play a game called Trouble. Like that's a game, like it's when you pop it, you gotta get a number, you have to like go around and we'll go at it, and that gets real intense. So stuff like feeding the homeless, like that's like a prime example of us like, okay, like, all right, let's see how many people we can make, how many things we can do. I would just say that's kind of just how we are. Like we're always trying to win at something. Like you said, like even in school, like, you know, wanting to be in the first in line. That was kind of thing when I was younger. And we used to have these math tests that I would take. And I remember my teacher would always say that at my parent teacher conference that once I was done my multiplication, because I was good with multiplication, like I would like be like done. Like, and like you're supposed to be quiet and like not let anybody know, but like I always had to let people know like I was in first place. So I would just say that's just in us. Like we're just competitive all around.
And you're a humble guy. But your mom mentioned you always kind of had the swag. I guess that's part of it, right? And now it's that you're finishing. You know, kind of the Miami attitude out there. What was your personality like as a little kid?
I would say I talked a lot. I was loud. I was smart too. So my mom always said like sometimes I have a smart mouth because I always try to reason with her, or you know, if I get in trouble, like, okay, well, can I do this? Like try to negotiate. It's like, this is not negotiation time. Like it is what it is. So I'll probably say, you know, I was funny, you know, loud, and, you know, I love being around people, making people laugh. And just, I feel like, you know, a lot of people kind of gravitated towards me. You know, I went to different schools and always had like great friends at those schools. And you know, friends came easy to me just off the character that I had. And, you know, I was always a guy that people could talk to as well, you know, on both sides. I think sometimes people can think, oh, he's like this, you know, like superstar, you can't talk to him, things like that. But like my friends knew that, oh, like he's on both sides. Like, yeah, he could be really good at sports, but he's also like a great person as well.
And your sister's, you know, 6 years older, right?
Yep.
So you're kind of like the baby of the house. How was that dynamic?
It was good. You know, I'll probably say the biggest thing, I always like would copy my sister. Like everything she did, like I would copy her, like from waking up, like how she brushed her teeth, what she used to make to eat. Like she's the reason why like I have like a nail biting problem, because she used to bite her nails and I used to bite my nails, but she doesn't bite her nails anymore. But like now I've started to got off of it, but you see now I'm already like years ahead of that, like years behind doing that. But she's someone that I looked up to. I still look up to now. You know, she's doing great things right now. And so, yeah, I'll probably say I could copy her like every single thing. I'm for sure positive she's get annoyed with that, most definitely.
So bring it to sports now. You started playing sports. Your dad says that you were better at baseball than at football. Tell me about your baseball career.
Yeah, I think till this day I'd be in the MLB right now. Like I really like I played baseball really competitively. I played, travel baseball, things like that. I played middle infield, shortstop, second base, and I pitched a little bit. And yeah, that was really my main sport. I grew up, I always played football because my friends played football and I played for the same little league my dad played for. But when it came to baseball, like it just like came a little bit more natural. Like when it came to just throwing the ball and just fielding the ball, hitting, it just came a little bit more natural. So I always just stuck with it. And I ended up breaking my wrist in high school. I broke both of them on back-to-back years. And so now when I swing a bat, if I ever were to roll over on a ball, like it would kind of, hurt a little bit. So that's really the transition to why I play football now, or why I took it more seriously in high school. But no, like baseball, that even now, like I could definitely like pick up a ball and like play. Like, yeah, most definitely.
Were you a Mariners fan?
A little bit. I love Robinson Cano. Like he was a really good second baseman. That's somebody. So if I were to go to a Mariners game, I'm definitely was going to see Robinson Cano.
Did any of the baseball kind of movements and just skills help you now that you're playing a defensive back? Or
I would say when I was younger, you play every position. So like even when I was outfielder, I would say ball tracking. I'll say ball tracking comes really easy to me when it comes to throwing the balls in the air. Like whether I was in center field, left field, right field. I didn't move to middle infield more towards probably when I got to high school, maybe like 8th grade. So like I've kind of played outfield when I was younger. So just being able just to adjust the ball when it's in the air. So like when I'm playing post and the ball's thrown deep, like I'm able to, turn my head around and like just track it easily just because, that's how you had to do. It's definitely a little bit harder tracking a smaller ball in baseball. So it seems easier now for sure.
Yeah, we've seen that a couple times this year.
Yeah.
So one sport that you played that, I'm used to the Southeast, right? Obviously,
right.
From Florida here, skiing. Yeah. That's an unusual one as far as, from this part of town.
Right.
How were you as a skier?
I was a really good skier. I mean, I still am now. I haven't skied in 2 years, but, I was a really good skier. My dad, he joined this black ski club in Seattle, and it was first my sister. He taught my sister and my mom. My mom and dad, they could really ski. My dad still skis, but my sister was, like the best one when we were younger. And then, she kind of, started, doing other things. And so I kind of became the one that was good at skiing. But no, he put me in skiing when I was about 4 or 5 years old. And then I used to take, like intense ski classes where like I would be with the teacher. They take us to the top of the mountain, show us how to like get down it. So yeah, no, skiing was a thing that every Friday and Saturday, either it was night skiing or skiing in the morning on Saturdays. Like, that's something I did as a kid. Like in the wintertime, like I'm skiing from November up until sometimes around like May, because depending on the weather, like it'll go on. You can ski up all the way up till then.
So double black diamond, mogul,
all that, yeah, all that. That's all, yeah, for sure.
All right, so do you play basketball too, right? A little bit.
A little bit in middle school, I played basketball. Yep.
Okay, but then the transition to football. You mentioned your injury. Talk about just switching from baseball to football. What drew you to the sport of football?
Right. I would say just the biggest thing. So I had uncles and I had cousins that, had played defensive back. So I knew about defensive back, and I always loved football, but I just think the passion I had for baseball was just a little bit bigger at the time. But I went to school, O'Day High School. It was a top school in Washington, and they are big on all sports. But, the main sport they were big on was football. And I think being there my freshman and sophomore year and seeing like the crowds and seeing like how much people love like playing football, I was just like, oh, okay, like these games are a little more exciting than baseball games. And I was just like, okay, like this might be something I would want to do. So I would just say just the atmosphere of how, O'Day treated football and how good we were drew me to, I wanted to be a guy that, was known for, at that school being good at football.
Yeah, Taylor Mays, right?
Taylor Mays went there. Yep. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you're having success. You've had a lot of success to this point, right? Academically, sports, but you're not necessarily getting the stars.
Yeah.
It's funny now seeing how you were recruited as a 23-year-old compared to, or 22-year-old compared to, 17-year-old.
Right.
But, you weren't getting that attention yet. How did you take that, being someone who's been so successful at everything up to that point?
Right. I would say, honestly, it's just really just in trusting the process, having my faith in God, knowing God has a plan for me, and, not really, getting worried about it. I knew, I could play at this level, that especially when I was young. I knew I just needed the right coach to kind of, teach me the ways. You only do things by yourself only for so long until you need, someone to help you. And I would just say, my determination, like I was really dialed in and really focused on, achieving this. I saw myself in a way. I wouldn't say I saw myself how I am now. That wouldn't be true. Only God saw that. But I would say I saw myself being a really good college football player. And I just knew that I just had to, just grind and work hard. And I felt like that was something, like I said, it's been kind of ingrained in me when it comes to my parents. My parents, like you said, going to HBCUs, going to Ivy League schools, all they come from was working hard. So, they know about that, and they instilled that in me and my sister. So that's kind of really came natural. There were days, of course, are tough. You're going to have tough days, but it really wasn't anything that I took on as like, oh, like, I don't know if I could do it. Like, I knew if I just put my mind to it, I could definitely achieve it.
Now look, may not have the star ratings at that time, but the Ivy Leagues knew what you could do athletically and academically. Columbia, I understood, really heavy after you.
Right.
Of course, your parents both had the Ivy League experience.
Yeah.
So what was that kind of, first of all, before we can get to talking to your parents about it, what was just your internal decision between pursuing a Division I football versus going to the Ivies?
Right. I would just say the biggest thing was I wanted to get the best of both worlds. I knew Columbia, it's Columbia, you really don't need to talk about anything about them, even Harvard, any of the Ivy League schools, really just their education. They preach the 4 for 40, 4 years here is going to set you up for 40 years for the rest of your life. And, going to a school like the University of Washington was a school that at the time, offered the best of both worlds, good football, as well as a really good business program, the Foster School of Business. They're a top 10 business school in the country. So that was a big reason why I even went to UW, was because of, like I said, academics do come first. So knowing that I could get the best of both worlds, play, top elite football and get a top, education was definitely something that I was like, okay, I gotta take advantage of this opportunity, most definitely.
Now, talking to your dad, Harvard Business School guy, he told me he couldn't even process what you told him. And like, I got to imagine this guy's, you got to hold him in pretty high esteem, being your dad, how successful he's been.
For sure.
To go, I don't say go against him, but to do something different than what maybe he expected, that took a lot of, it took a lot in you. So, how was that process, and how did you get that strength to say, listen, Dad, I appreciate you, love you, but this is what's for me?
Oh yeah, no, my dad, he almost fell out, like, because he was just like, my dad, dads, they want what's best for you. And he knew, what it was like at Harvard or those Ivy League schools. And, like I said, I look up to my dad, like that's my role model. So even seeing his success, like I know definitely like he was leaning more towards like, okay, Ivy League schools, even my mom as well, just a little bit, just because they've experienced it, and all they wanted was best for me. But, I just think, I just had a certain vision for myself that, I couldn't get off of it. Like I was really determined on it. And it never felt wrong. Like, I never felt like, I'm going against my dad. Cause at the end of the day, I knew my parents are going to support my decision wherever I do. So in terms of, the support, I had it there, but I just think it was a vision that, they hadn't seen yet. And, I really didn't see it. I believed it, but I didn't have it fully drawn out on what it was going to look like. But I just knew that, okay, like I know I can play. Like, so I don't know how it's going to look, but I know I can do special things here and make sure I still get a, elite education. So no, it definitely was like kind of a big thing within the house because I did it. But my parents were like, once I committed and signed, my dad, mom, sister, all fully on board and, were, doing whatever they could to help me.
You talk about Ivy League, the best of the best going there.
Right.
When it comes to defensive backs, where you went, Washington at the time you went there.
Right.
I mean, you were around Trent McDuffie, maybe the best corner in the NFL, Kyler Gordon. So what was that when you just show up there as a walk-on and you're looking at guys, you don't know they're future pros at the time, but you could see their ability.
Right. It was, it was great, honestly, seeing those guys and those guys' character, they're, great on the field, but their characters off the field, they're very welcoming. They're always, I could call Trent and Kyler right now and ask them for advice. And just overall, Elijah Molden, Miles Bryant, guys that were there my freshman year. Those are guys that have always, been in support and, they've always supported me. They saw how hard I worked and they saw how bad I wanted it. And they knew like, okay, like this guy, like he's good. Like he can definitely play. And they weren't guys to, okay, well now we're going to not show them film or anything. They wanted to help even more. Like, hey, okay, this is how, I watch film. This is what tips I look at. I remember my third year, Trent got hurt. So that was kind of when I started to, start playing. And he was in my ear the whole game on the sideline, like telling me what to read. Then we watched tape together. Even though he was hurt, he didn't have to go out his way to make sure I was prepared for the game. But I just think the standard that we had in the DB room, he wanted to, uphold that, but also just me and him being in the same class, he just wanted to see, one of his brothers being successful. So those guys were definitely, a big help. And I got to kind of size myself up a bit. I got to see those type of players play and, being on the same field as Kyler and Trent is just like, okay, like you can play with these guys. Like these guys are good, but like, you're good too as well. So it was kind of a sense of, reassurance, especially being so young in my career. I was 20 years old. So being 20 and seeing, okay, you're playing with guys and seeing where they are now, you're just like, okay, like you have the ability, you just got to just put it all together.
Was that the moment where you realized that you could do it? When was that moment for you when you're like, okay, walk on, it's a leap of faith? When were you like, you know what? Okay, I belong here.
Right. I'd probably say that year, 2021, when we played Oregon State. Played Oregon State in 2021. It was my second start, and I had like 2 PBUs and a couple tackles, and I just felt comfortable. That was the first game. My first start, I was like, oh, okay, kind of scared. But that other game, I just felt real comfortable. I didn't have any fear. Like, you have a little bit of butterflies, but that's what happens, before a game. But I felt really comfortable and confident. So for me to go out and play how I played and, see the guys who I was around playing with, I was just like, okay, like, you could definitely do this. Like, that was for sure the moment I was like, okay, you can make a career out of this.
Let me ask you about that moment. Kalen Boer's first team meeting.
Right.
Awards you a scholarship.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, look, you come from a successful family. It wasn't necessarily just the financial part of it. It's the respect factor, right?
Right.
What was that feeling like when you get that scholarship?
Oh, no, it was amazing. It was amazing. He kind of gave me some type of a hint a little bit. I remember we had a meeting and he was like, he had brought it up because I wasn't going to bring it up, but he had brought it up. And I was like, oh yeah, like, just, let me know or anything like that. He was like, okay, like, we're going to have a team meeting and I'll talk to you after the team meeting. Like, we're going to continue this conversation after the team meeting. I was like, oh, all right, cool. So when he started the meeting or ended the meeting, he was like, before I go, I want to, shout someone out. He's a super hard worker. And I was like, okay, like, it could be me. And then one of my roommate, Drew Fowler, he was looking at me. He turned around. He was like looking at me. I was like, oh, like, I think this is what I think it is. And he ended up giving me the scholarship. So real big, thanks to, Coach DeBoer. He saw talent in me just off of just watching film and hearing from people. Some coaches don't really just give scholarships without seeing a guy play yet. So for him to do that was, definitely huge. And I'll always be grateful for that.
And then obviously you end up starting in the national championship game.
Right.
So great football decision on top of everything else. How did it feel to get to that point, knowing where it started at the University of Washington?
It felt great. It felt, like I said, if you would have told me when I was 17, 18, like, I'd be playing the national championship game, I'd be like, oh, okay, like, sure, we'll see. But, just seeing all the hard work and the process and just consistently, like, just being devoted to the process and just really enjoying the process more than the prize and just falling in love with the game, just to see and reap the benefits of that, to get to a game like that was just like, okay, like, very, not the word, I guess humbling is not the word, but just very, just appreciative. I was very appreciative, of just the journey. You kind of get so caught up in it. It was good to kind of take a step back and be like, wow, like, okay, like, look how far, you've come. And that's, giving me even motivation to get back to this year. I would probably say that's the biggest thing.
And the journey's still ongoing, but during that process, was there any moment of doubt in between showing up and where you are now, where you were like, I don't know if I made the right decision, or you just
right. That's a really good question. I'd probably say, I think everyone has doubt. I think there's always going to be little slips in time you have doubt, but I think it's just the idea of once you feel that doubt, being able to have the right tools, the right people around you to kind of get you out of it. So I would say I've definitely had doubts like, oh, okay, like, did I make the right decision, or was this good for me? But, being able to, like, snap out of it, like, okay, like, this is, like, where you're supposed to be. God's timing is perfect. So, where I'm at right now, like, I'm supposed to be there. So just not questioning and just having faith is the biggest thing for me, and just being dialed in on that and just knowing, like, it's all going to take care of itself. You put all your doubts and your worries and, you give it to God, and you just, let him handle it, and you just, do what you do. So that's what I did.
How important is your faith in your life?
Right. Really important. Really important. I grew up, going to church, grew up in a Christian family. My mom, I'll probably say she's really big in her religion. My dad is too, but just in terms of my faith, my mom's helped me a lot. She prays for me every night. We pray together every night. I read, devotionals, on the Bible app. And I would just say it's really big. I think, you got to give all the credit to God, in terms of that. I think he's put me, through a lot of obstacles and a lot of challenges to where I can only give it to him. Like, I can't say it was me. Like, I can't say with all the stuff that I've been through, not every walk-on earns a scholarship. There's probably plenty of walk-ons that had talent, but weren't in the right system or didn't have the right coach around to even offer them a scholarship. So just being put where I was at and going through what, like, I was doing, it's just a blessing. Like, I can only say it was God. Like, it's nothing, like, I'm just a person. Like, he's using me to be his example, but yeah, that's all him. So I just always give credit to God. Like, nothing is me. It's all him for sure.
I was talking to Cam on this show, and similar answer and similar journey, really, as far as having doubts and not being expected to be what he is today. How important do you think the role of faith is on the team in general? Do you think there's a strong contingent of players who really rely on their faith?
No, most definitely, most definitely. You know, we say a prayer before we go out to the field, and I think what's big is our coach. You know, our coach Cristobal. You know, he's really heavy in his faith, and you know, he leans on God a lot. So when you have a head coach that expresses that and is not afraid to express his faith, it definitely it influences the other players. You know, we have chapel and we have, church. We have guys going to church on Sundays after a big game. You know, we'll come back, beat USF and come back at 1:00. People are like, hey, like we're going to church at 12. Like, hey, like show up. We have chapel every Friday or Saturday, depending on the game. And it's packed in there. Like everybody's showing up, everybody's there. And Pastor Mike does a really great job of, preaching a word that not always related to football, but it's just related to just learning about God. It doesn't have to be motivational towards the game. It just has to be about learning about God. So no, we have definitely a strong faith when it comes to this team.
Now switching gears slightly, but the idea that, team leaders, I'm just thinking about some of the older players on the team, yourself, Cam, Xavier Restrepo, Inez Cooper, Kiko Mauanoa, a lot of guys that were not 5-star, 4-star players out of high school. Eventually people figured out how good you guys were. Do you think that's kind of shaped the identity of this team, at least from a leadership standpoint?
I would say 100%. I think, I like playing with players like that, players that, have been kind of counted out, been kind of doubted, just because, when you get to a point of success, it doesn't really faze them. It's like, yeah, I could be really this good. I could be a Heisman quarterback, I could be a top receiver, a top linebacker, a top DB in the country. But, I remember when, people didn't think I would get here. So, you just always have that constant motivation and being able to, trickle that down to some of these younger guys. Some of these younger guys, we got, some of the top guys in Florida. So, these guys may have not have experienced the, being doubted, and just being able to trickle them and show them like, hey, like there's always going to be some there out there working harder than you. And being able to inspire guys like JoJo, Zaquan Patterson, Bobby Pruitt, Jaden Harris, guys like that, who are heavily recruited, top guys, and being able to switch that mindset to have that, always on go mindset. They already have it, but just being able to guys look up to us and be able to like kind of tell them our story and be able to relate to them and let them know, there's going to be times where you got to be, a dog at all times. You can never get satisfied. You always have to be consistent. I think when you can get a bunch of leaders to do that to younger guys, it's just going to make, it even better for sure.
So going back to your journey, the guy that gave you a scholarship, now you've gone with him to the championship. He goes to Alabama. What's your thought process at this point and up to your decision to enter the portal?
Right. I felt like I needed just a new start. Once he left, I just was kind of like, okay, like this would have been my 4th coach at the same school. And that was just something I was just like, I didn't really sit right with me. And I just felt like, I needed a new fresh start. Didn't know where I would go, but I knew like, schools were going to, call, and, Miami was, the best option, most definitely.
How'd it feel to go from no star to now you're recruited like a 5-star as a grown man? I mean, what was that feeling like, that process?
For me, it felt, fine. I really didn't, take too much in consideration, but I really loved it for my parents. My parents getting the 5-star treatment and getting put in hotels and eating great food and seeing their son take pictures and all, the different gear and talking to the whole staff. So, I was really happy for them that they got to experience that and kind of live that moment that, they didn't get to experience when I was younger. For me, I was like, I got to just find the right school. I'm kind of over all the glitz and glamour just because I'm like, want to make sure I'm in the right spot. But for my parents, for them to, come down here and, Coach Cristobal, he, made sure, we were treated like family as soon as we got here. So I love that for my parents, most definitely.
One story I heard was that Cristobal was stuck in Chicago. It took a helicopter to get to make sure he got to your visit. How did that make you feel when you realized, man, there's nothing that can keep this guy from recruiting me?
Oh, no, it was crazy. So I've always, respected Coach Cristobal because I played him, a couple times and, they beat us twice. Every time we played them, they beat us. And the type of team that he had and the type of caliber of team, they were a unit. They were like a military team. Like everybody was dialed in, disciplined, and elite guys came from his program. So I knew the type of coach he was. I remember, I was going down to visit and he FaceTimed me. And it was like a number, and I was just like, okay, like I think it's Coach Cristobal because so many numbers from the staff was coming in. And I answered it, and he's like in a helicopter. He's like, sorry, like there's service, but like I'm headed to you right now. Like I'm coming to you right now. And I've never had a head coach FaceTime me to, like let me know that they wanted me. So I was just like, oh wow, like okay, I must really be that important just because if someone's stopping their recruiting to fly back from Minnesota. That's crazy.
What ultimately made you make that decision to come here?
I would say the biggest thing was my comfortability, because I think being so far from home was something that I was like, oh, like I'm far. But Coach Feld, the director of recruiting here, he did a great job. Coach Field, director of recruiting, he did a great job of just making me feel like I was at home and just giving me a reassurance that like, my family's gonna be able to come down here, of course, and I'm gonna be in the right spot and the guys. And honestly, Coach Guidry, I sat down, I was with him for about an hour, and he talked about just a brief discussion on the film, the techniques he runs, the type of player, he sees me to be. I think it's good when coaches not only explain their defense, but then explain like where you fit and how you fit. I think you can show a guy like, all right, like for example, this is Cam Kitchens. This is what he does, da 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 da. But he kind of tried to relate it back to me, like this is where I see you making plays. This is where I see you doing this, and these are the accolades that I see you getting. So just coach being so invested in where he sees me was big. I've never had a coach so invested like that. And then Coach Cristobal as well, him being so invested and constantly just giving me reminders and telling me like how good I could be and how good this team was. And I think all that combination with Cam Ward had committed like 2 days before I had even went on my visit. He had committed as well, understanding the type of staff and players that were already on this team. I was just like, okay, well, yeah, this is definitely, going to be a good year. So I had to come here. I know it would have been crazy for me to go anywhere else.
You mentioned the discipline of the Coach Cristobal teams. To get to where you are, academically and athletically, being a walk on everything you achieved,
right.
Obviously the discipline has to be on point.
Right.
Is that something you try to teach the younger players about?
Most definitely. The one things I think I try to emphasize is that the days can like get boring, but you can't get bored. Like, you wake up every day. Like I wake up every day, same time, go to practice, go home, go to meetings, watch film. Like you do that every single day, and it can get repetitive, but the process, you can't get tired of the process. That's the process is what's getting you, the record that we have, and the process is making you play the way you're playing. So you risking and sacrificing the process because you may be tired or you may be bored is, just selfish. And, that's the type of players we don't have. We have guys that are constantly trying to watch film, constantly trying to get better. And, just for the younger guys coming out of high school, me just expressing them the importance of, being consistent day in and day out. That's the biggest thing when it comes to college football. You can't have one game where you play good and then the next 3 or 4 you don't play well. I think playing consistent and being productive is big. And the only way you do that is having a process and, like you said, discipline and not getting bored, just falling in love with the process. You can't really fall in love with, the success of it. I'm more in love with me watching film, going to practice, corrections, getting better than I am when it comes to, winning the game, because the work of it is the reason why I got there. So that's just the reward is the win. But the real prize to me is, the work to get to that point.
Now you could be on Wall Street right now, wearing a suit, making money, right. A nice apartment. You don't have to be out here in the heat getting beat up.
Right.
What drives you to push yourself in this way?
I would say the main thing, 2 things. My parents, my family, I love to make them smile. I love to see them happy, whether it's, me doing something small or big. I love, to make my parents happy. And then I would say for myself, it's the younger version of me. I would like to say I'm living in an answered prayer right now. Like, I prayed for this a long time ago. And even before that, when I was a kid, I wasn't the guy that people thought that I would be. And, I didn't see myself as that as a kid. I don't think I was the most confident kid in my skill set. I was a funny, laughable, but in terms of sports, I wasn't the most confident in my skill set. So, I play for that, that smaller version of me that people are like, oh yeah, like you're really smart. Like you're really good at like math and things like that. But I don't know about football or I don't know anything like that. I had a lot of people kind of questioning, should he go to Washington? Like maybe he should go to like a smaller school or maybe he should just go get his education. So I would just say the younger version of me, he's definitely looking up to me and I want to be, a constant inspiration just for younger guys as well. But just for the younger version of me, that's somebody that I know if I were going to talk to, he'd be like, oh, wow, like this is what we're doing right now. And I'd be like, yeah, like it's pretty cool. And like we got a lot more left in the tank for sure.
Your days are pretty packed. You got the football, academics are always on point.
Mhm.
Obviously, this, your faith and your spiritual life. Do you have like hobbies, things you like to do? I know your parents mentioned they taught you how to code, or they made sure you learned how to code.
Yeah,
when you were a
I
kid.
learned coding. I don't know if I can code anymore, but I know about HTML and all coding like that. I'm definitely aware, and I know how to do that a little bit. I would say I like playing the game. I get on the video games a lot, and just kind of hanging out with my friends. They got some nice boats out here, so and every once in a while we'll get on a boat. Enjoy the ocean, enjoy the water. So I'll probably say that's probably the biggest thing. But besides that, I just usually relax and stay in the AC.
What's your impression of Miami? Obviously, we talk about the heat and stuff, but just like the city, it's very different.
Right.
You got giant iguanas walking around. You got alligators.
Right.
It's what's your impressions of just the area?
I would say the movies did a good job of kind of showing what Miami is, especially, the beaches and, just the downtown and just the city, I was kind of like, oh, that's just the movies. Like, it doesn't really look like that out there, or like, there's really not that much traffic, or it's not that busy or that hot. And I was like, oh, it really is like what they say in the movies, like how people think of Miami in the movies, for the most part, not everything, but for the most part, it's pretty similar, a little bit fast paced, but, I've been acclimated to it. I'm adjusted to it. And, I love it down here, most definitely.
Awesome. You got a lot of fans. We got a lot of questions from the fans for you. Some of this is going to go over some of the stuff we talked about. But we got Mr. Geography 99 asking Meesh, why Miami? You made a great decision, but what is it about it that drew you here? You mentioned some of this stuff, but just a little more on your decision to come to Miami.
Right. Why Miami? I would probably say the biggest thing is the potential of the team. Seeing the guys that were coming in, the guys that they already had. I would say, the coaching staff, the emphasis that they have on defense is big. We're a team that we have a really good offense and we have a really good defense, but just being a defensive guy, having coaches and, players that really, you can tell they care about defense. They don't want to be a one-sided team. That was big for me as well, for sure. So I'll probably say those two things.
Mr. Kotsakis, O'Day or Eastside Catholic, and why?
Oh, O'Day all the way. That's our arch rival. We do not like Eastside Catholic. And O'Day just won, too. They just beat Eastside Catholic in our rivalry game. So shout out to the guys for getting it done. But O'Day, by far.
There you go.
Yeah.
We got a question from somebody named Inez Cooper. I don't know if you know him. He wants to know how you feel about Coop.
How about Coop? That's my guy. Coop is a guy that he loves to talk. That's one of the first people, I talked to. I remember we got in a huge argument on if the Pac-12 over the ACC, who plays harder. And I could just tell the type of guy he was with how passionate he was. And that I love being around guys that are passionate. So Coop, that's my guy. That's my guy, man, for sure.
There you go. Canes 305 wants to know, and this is a recent question here. What was the feeling while they were reviewing that Hail Mary at the end of the Virginia Tech game?
I was in the play and I saw it and I was just like, I never saw him really get control of it. I think when they called it a touchdown, I was just like, okay, they got to review it, because either I had a bad eye and I didn't see it, but once they showed it, I was just like, okay, he never really caught it. He's kind of squeezing his arms together and the ball's somewhere. So, I was pretty assured, but you never know. Don't want to put it in the ref's hands. So, we'll make sure we do a better job of, leaving it up to us than the refs.
Was that you that was out of bounds that touched him, they said, or?
It was Zay Horton. He was leaning and he was out of bounds and he had touched the ball. So apparently before even if he wanted to grab it, the ball had already been dead. I think that's what they called. They didn't even talk about who had possession or not. They talked about the guy who was out of bounds touched it. So the play is automatically over. So yeah.
Gotcha. Jay Barron wants to know, what's your go-to gas station snack?
Gas station snack? I like to get spicy nacho, chips, the nerd clusters in a pink bag, and then either a pineapple or a strawberry Fanta.
Oh, there you go. So you got it all set.
Oh, yeah.
We got some Latin gas station stuff here. It's only in Miami, but it can get dicey with the cheeses and the croquetas. You got to be careful. Maxwell Fatboy wants to know, what's your favorite part about living in Miami?
Favorite part? I would say my favorite part about living in Miami would probably be, I would say the weather. It is hot, but coming from Seattle, I'm definitely grateful for, it being hot all the time. Being in the AC, I can be in the AC all day. Everywhere here, I think every building has AC, so you never have to be worried about being hot unless you're outside. But I'm really only outside for practice, and then if I'm on the water. But besides that, I stay inside. So definitely the weather.
Yeah. When you step out the airport, it's like a giant hug.
Right. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. The airport. But besides that, all good.
C Marie 83 wants to know, similar question, but let's focus on the university. What do you like best about the University of Miami?
I was at the campus. I remember Coach Mike Rumpf. He took us on a tour of the campus, and I was like, "Whoa!" Like it's a bit small because we're a private school, but the water fountain, and they have the huge building right in front that looks out on the water fountain and the dorms, and they have a pool like literally in like in the campus. Like I've never seen anything like that. So the campus is beautiful.
Yeah, that's a good one. King James wants to know, when are we going to get you into golf?
I golfed one time at Top Golf. I didn't do too well, like at all. I thought I could translate it to baseball, but it's definitely way different. But I would love to learn how to golf. I definitely need to learn that. So then when I get older, I can be that guy that likes to trash talk and be good at golf, most definitely.
Once your finance career kicks in, which actually leads to my next question, which is, when the NFL is done,
right,
what do you want to do? You want to stay with the game? You want to get into finance? You want to do something else?
Right. No, I think, people ask me that, I'm smart. So a lot of people say like, oh, you can just get right into coaching. I would probably say, I want to use my degree. So get into venture capital or some investment banking. I majored in finance. And then, kick that up, do good. And then I'll probably leave that to coaching, maybe like coach my kid. But I don't know if I could get into the coaching game. And coaching, man, the days are long. These coaches are here day in and day out. So, they're dedicated. I don't know if I can be as dedicated to that if I'm not playing in it. So I'll probably say get into finance for sure.
Smart decision.
Yeah.
And Meesh, appreciate you. I know Miami fans appreciate that you chose Miami and how you represent the school, not just on the field, but off the field, man. So appreciate you doing your Strom Sessions.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.
So check out every Wednesday on YouTube, Miami Hurricanes, All Access, like and subscribe. You can also get us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Till the next time, go Canes.